And I think that's where goals come in to help you understand, okay, this is what I want to do this year. Here's the metrics that I'm trying to achieve. And so long as I'm on pace to do that, everything should be in good order. And I think the only way you can know that is if you track things appropriately. And so we were talking before we started recording. I just finished a book by John Acuff called All It Takes Is a Goal. And John's got a unique approach to a lot of kind of life, but he's similar life station to me. And so I resonate with a lot of what he grew up with and the anecdotes that he shares. And the concept that he was talking about that kind of stuck with me was, how do you score what you're doing? How do you track what your goals are and how much progress you're making toward that? And so that can take a number of different forms in the law office, but you need to be cognizant of that so that each day you're reaching those daily goals, so that you're not spending all the time trying to catch up later or overdoing it on the front end and not being able to pace yourself as you go through. And so you'll know by the rhythm of your practice, in theory, that, hey, every January it kind of starts off a little slow, but then we tend to pick up speed and we tend to fill the calendar back up. And, that's that natural ebb and flow of things. And we're hitting the metrics we defined for ourselves at the beginning of the year. So we're good. Yeah. And that's a hard thing, because if we don't have that phone ringing, if you don't have emails coming in, if you don't have activity, a lot of times we can confuse activity with progress. And are we actually working on the right things that move the ball forward?
Yeah, and one thing that I like to do is look back at, if I've got these goals for this upcoming year, what is my history of kind of having success towards that type of goal? So if you've got a revenue goal for 2026, look back at your 2025 numbers and determine how many initial consultations did you have, how many of those retained, take a percentage of that, and then divide that number by well, you find out what your cost is per matter that you've retained, and then run the numbers, and that will help you determine how many initial consultations you need to have in 2026. Maybe even per week. So maybe it's five appointments that you want to have every single week in order to meet your weekly goal. Say you want to retain 2 clients a week, and you got a 50% retention rate. Well, maybe that's, you need to have 4 or 5 initial consultations lined up. Well, if you know that you need that, then you can kind of be aiming towards, that's your goal for every single week. Whether it's, going to lunch with some referral partners perhaps, or it's reaching out to past clients that kind of left you hanging. You had a nice conversation with them, but you didn't complete anything. They didn't hire you. You kind of go through your files and figure out ways that you can get 4 or 5 initial consultations on your calendar. And that's, a kind of a proactive measure that you can take towards that goal, even though, it sometimes feels like it's out of control whether somebody sets an appointment with you or not.
Yeah, and it's kind of nice when you have that chart, if you will, that starts to fill itself in. So, hey, it's January. I know I wanted to have 10 appointments by midway through. Here's where we are. And we track that in various ways throughout the office. And one of them is our new matter count. And we like the new year because our matters are numbered by year and then sequentially within that year. And so as you watch those matters count up, you've opened enough matters to kind of stay on pace for where you were before. And then, like you said, I can project out based on what I've done in the past that if we did this many matters and we're able to generate this, stands to reason that plus or minus a few percentage points here and there, likely we can do that again. Now, if you have a practice that involves a lot of contingency cases or something like that, little bit harder to project that, perhaps, but the same principle applies. And I know for like personal injury cases and those kind of things, that's a little bit different of an analysis for folks. So maybe your goal there is, how many mediations do I have on the calendar? Where am I in the process of actually wrapping up some of these cases and keeping them moving forward? And so there's different ways and different measures for how you can quantify what you're trying to accomplish. I think the key is figuring out what that limit is for you, what that goal is. And I think that's an interesting discussion. Do you set a stretch goal or do you set a realistic goal?